This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Africa. It's a glorious summer's afternoon, and this is Safari Live.
Ready.
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good afternoon, especially to the children of Windsor Oaks Elementary School, Lynn Haven Elementary School, and Rosemont Forest. Lots of trees there in Virginia Beach, clearly. It's wonderful to have you chaps with us for the next 45 minutes. My name is James. On camera today is Brian. And Brian has got a mosquito on his thumb, and that is because it is summertime here, and there are many, many mosquitoes around the place. Now, over the course of the next 45 minutes, we'd love to hear from you, so ask us anything you like about what you're going to see. Hopefully, we'll find you some animals. It's very hot, so we're going to go and look in the shade and by the water. My friend Brent is out. He's heading far off to the east to see if we can find a leopard that we saw this morning, and Jamie, who's a lot more delicate than Brent, is out on foot around that way, and she's going to find you some tracks and birds and smaller stuff. But we're going to all try and find lovely, entertaining things for you from Africa. So any questions you have, send them through. Now, this is the world's most natural trampoline. I really quite like it. And I'm going to come back to the car now. There we are. And then we'll go off to a waterhole not too far from here and see what else it is that we can find. It's 36 degrees Fahrenheit, if you can believe it. That's about 93 degrees Fahrenheit, which is very hot indeed. Okay, on we go. It's a lovely afternoon, and I know it's winter where you are, but it's summer here, and the sun doesn't let us forget that for 1 second. Let's see what else we can find around the corner here. There are lots and lots of birds around at the moment. Of course, summer is breeding time for the birds, and so they're all making nests. And you know what? I found 3 nests this morning, which for me is quite good. So I'll hopefully find a few more for you this afternoon. It's always so much fun to watch birds breeding and to watch little birds becoming big birds. Now, many of you have seen The Lion King, I'm sure, and you will know about Zazu. And Zazu is just over there. See? Now, Zazu's real name is the Yellow-bill Hornbill. Now, why do you think he's doing that with his beak? Why is it open? And you see his throat moving up and down? Tell your teacher why you think he's doing that. And I'm sure that you all know the answer, especially those of you who've got dogs and cats. You'll know, especially with dogs, that when it's so hot like this, they have to pant. And they pant because, unlike us, they don't sweat. So while we get sweaty under our arms and on top of our heads, birds don't sweat. And so they have to pant. And that has got a very fancy name, everyone, and that name is gular flutter. So say that with me, gular flutter. And this is a gular pouch around the throat here, and they flap it up and down. Look. I'm asking Brian to do something very difficult. No, we're not going to get it. It's a dragonfly, everybody, and many of you have seen those around the place. Right, Jamie, like I said, is out on foot. She's going to find you some things that are closer to the ground. Let's go and find out what her plan is for the afternoon.
And a very good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the on-foot portion of the Sunset Safari. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon Jeandre is on camera with me, currently demonstrating his amazing ability to walk backwards without falling down. Be careful of termite mounds, Jeandre, they like to pop out of nowhere. An especially warm welcome to all of the schools joining us. I hope you're really excited to be spending the afternoon just enjoying being with nature, and one of the best ways to do that is to be on foot and is to experience things at a much closer level, because the vehicles will get you nice and close to things like lions and elephants and leopards and all sorts of things like that. But being on foot gives you an opportunity to walk slowly through and see what you can find, and there's always all sorts of interesting things close to the ground. Now, even this, for example, it looks interesting to me, and that is a pile of antelope dung, all part of the ecosystem that we live in. Victoria, you want to know what kind of an ecosystem we're in. Well, we're in something known as a savanna ecosystem, or it's almost a sort of a mixed woodland ecosystem, but it differs from place to place and from area to area. Now, we've started off our walk on the blistering hot open area that we're on at the moment. It's known as a clearing known as Quarantine, and it's basically just grass and some very big trees. But very soon we're going to be going into what we would call a river system. So there's no river flowing. It hasn't flowed for a long time. We haven't had enough rain, but there are massive trees and all sorts of different plants and different animals that are associated with that, and that's only about 500 yards away from where we are. So our ecosystem sort of constantly changes. There's a whole load of different dynamics that we're going to try and show you, from the smallest insect to the biggest animal, to see if we can see one. I haven't seen an elephant in what feels like forever. I'm hoping perhaps we might have a chance to find one of them on our walk this afternoon. I mentioned that it's hot. It is very hot this afternoon. It's very warm. I'm not sure what the exact temperature, but it is quite sweaty. Abby, you want to know what animals we could expect to see. Abby, on foot, I could find you things like termites, although a lot of them are going to be hiding away because it is so hot. Spiders, scorpions. We've seen snakes on our bushwalks. We have seen some of the big animals too. Buffalo, those sorts of things. Buffalo, we've walked lions before. James had an incredible experience with a leopard on foot. And these are all the sorts of animals that you might see either on foot or on the drive. So we don't know what to expect because it is live and because this place is not a zoo. So all of these animals are completely 100% wild, and what that means is that we can't tell you what we don't know what we're going to see, so we can't necessarily tell you what we're going to see. You will definitely see an antelope. I've got a stone in my shoe. Just get that out. You're definitely going to see an antelope at some point. You could see something known as a warthog, like Pumbaa in The Lion King. You could see monkeys, you could see baboons, you could see, what else could we see? What would you like to see, Abby? That is the big question, of course. I'm hoping this afternoon to maybe find you a chameleon. I've decided that should be my project for this particular walk on foot. That's what I'm eager to see. There's another little animal that we could spot while we're on these walks, and it's not always about the big ones. There is a type of animal that live in these sorts of old termite mounds. Now, I don't see any sign of them at the moment, but there is a type of animal called a dwarf mongoose that loves to live in these little holes, and we'll be keeping an eye out for them as well, because they're utterly adorable. They're like tiny little ferrets. Now, they don't need to worry too much about water, but remember how I said it is very hot this afternoon? Ian, you wanted to know how the animals get water. Well, out here on Djuma, we've actually got several water holes. There's one maybe about 300 yards off to my left. There's a few puddles around still because we have had a little bit of rain. Not enough, but a little bit of rain to help keep the water well supplied. There's a water hole a mile that way, give or take, maybe just less than a mile that way. And what that is basically it is a man-made dam, but it fills up naturally with rainwater. And then in the height of our drought, what they will do is they will pump water to the water holes. So they will bring water up from underneath the surface of the soil, because there is water deep down underneath, even where we're standing now, although you'd have to dig very far over here. to get there. But even where we're standing now, there is water underneath the ground. So what they'll do is they will pump it up, and they'll pump some of the water holes. Not all of them, because that takes a lot of water, but they'll pump enough for the animals to stay alive, and that's one of the things that they've been doing to try and help the various animals. Now I just want to stop at this tree and see. No, this one's been lucky, it looks like. All of the silver cluster leaf trees, which is this tree, it's called a silver cluster leaf because, well, the leaves are silverish in the sun. And all of them are being fed on by a particular type of species of caterpillar that eventually turns into a really beautiful butterfly. And I wanted to show you them, but this one doesn't have any. This one's been a lucky tree. It doesn't have any sign of the caterpillars feeding upon it. Maybe we should try the next one and then the next one to see whether or not there are any of them there. And I'm thinking about perhaps even looking for some fruit that we can eat to help to keep ourselves cool on this particularly warm afternoon. Right, let us see. And it's also, of course, always important, because we are in the wilderness, it is important for us to remember that we are in the animal's home, and we've also got to be quite careful while we're on foot. We'll always constantly be checking, constantly aware of our surroundings. It's fine in this big open clearing because we've got plenty of space. Now, it doesn't look as though there are any caterpillars in this area. So while I go off in search of very cool creepy crawlies to show you, let's head over to Brent and find out what his plans are.
Hello and welcome, kids. We are right down in the east of our Travis area in an area called Cheetah Plains. Now, even though it's called Cheetah Plains, we're looking for leopard, but great to have all three schools with us on their own African adventure. So I'm hoping it's hot, it's 96 degrees Fahrenheit, that we might find some elephants. But before we do that, there's some baby impala and some mom impala as well. Hello, little guys. So, hello, Cammy. As impala are moving off. Cammy is wondering, where do the animals get their food? Well, Cammy, if I was an impala and I was hungry, I would do... Wait, let's have a look a little bit further down the road for a tastier treat. If you're an impala, Cammy, not if you're a human being, but if you want a tastier, that looks like a tastier treat. This is where the animals get their food. From the bush around them. So this is not a zoo. No one feeds them. It's not very nice if you're a person, though. No one feeds them, so they have to feed themselves. Let's not finish that. So, if you're an impala, you eat leaves and grass. And if you're a lion or a leopard, you eat impala. But then you've got to catch them. So, animals get their food from around them. So there's a big water hole near here that I want to have a quick look at, in case there's some elephants maybe. Hello, Amara. Now, Amara is wondering, do we ever have winter, or is it always hot? Well, Amara, we're in our summer at the moment, but we do have winter. But our winter, we don't have any snow. It just gets a little bit chilly. So not nearly as chilly as what you're used to, but we don't get any snow, but it can get quite cold. Okay. There's a water hole up ahead. Hello, Rolo. Rolo's wondering, how many times does it rain in a year? Well, we're actually in our rainy season now, and it seldom rains more than about 30 days a year in this area. We get about, on average, 350 millimeters of rain a year, which is a lot less than a lot of other places, but it is ideal for a lot of animals. Oh, there goes some more impala dashing across the road in front of us. Hello, little impala. That's a little boy. He was a baby last year. That's how big he grows in 1 year. Off he goes. Hello, Nima. Nima would like to know, what is an impala actually? Well, Nima, it is an antelope. So unlike the deer you get in America, an antelope keep its horns. They don't fall off every year. So if his horn breaks, it doesn't grow back. So an antelope is an antelope. So an impala is an antelope. Okay, it's very hot and dry. I wonder if there's any water left around here. If there's no water here, we're going to go look for some more water. I'm really hoping we can find some elephants, maybe a leopard if we're lucky. Let's have a look. Oh, there is some water here, but it doesn't look like the elephants have been here today. Hi, Emily. Emily says, well, if there's a drought, how does the water get into the water hole? Well, Emily, that's very clever. Well, we have had a bit of rain, so even though the drought has sort of come to an end, so we do have rain, and then some of the water holes, people put water into them. But most of the water holes are filled by rain. We have had a little bit of rain so far this year. No elephants. We're going to have to go look further to the east. So while we look for the big animals, it seems like Jamie's found a tiny one.
A tiny, but if you are another bug or another beetle, actually quite a scary insect. And this particular little guy with its bright red and black colouring is something known as an assassin bug. I was going to try and show you something else, but it just ran away. So we'll stick with our assassin bug for now. Now, assassin bugs are exceptional hunters of other insects. So they'll go after different things, and there are different types of assassin bugs. Some of them go after ants, some of them go after termites, some of them will go after other bugs or spiders on the flower. I'm trying to move it slightly so that we can see it, but it doesn't want to be seen. Brightly coloured. Now, how many of you know about when nature has bright colours? It's usually trying to warn you that that particular insect or that particular animal is dangerous in some way. So a brightly coloured caterpillar, or perhaps a brightly coloured snake or butterfly, they're trying to tell you that they're dangerous, that they're toxic in some way, or that they produce something scary, or that they can bite very hard. It's called aposematic colouring, and it's essentially nature's way of avoiding a fight if absolutely possible. So if you've got something red and black and yellow, startling colours, then that insect is probably poisonous to eat. Monarch butterflies are a really good idea, or a really good example. There are some insects, though, that are completely harmless, but they have learnt, or through evolution have come to have the same bright colours, even though they're not poisonous at all, even though they are not toxic in any way. They've imitated the colours of toxic animals so that the predators stay away from them, so that the predators don't go after them. So nature is amazing in the way that she designs the different insects. If it's a mammal species, well, most mammals don't see in the same color that we do as human beings. Some of the primates do, and the predators can see in limited color. But in that case, then, the animals that want to try and have aposematic coloring will have black and white, like honey badgers. Now, Jack, you say, can assassin bugs break human skin? And that's a very good question, Jack, because not all of them can, and not all insects can. You might have heard of a spider called the daddy longlegs. That's a very good example of a spider that cannot break human skin. And the answer with this one is probably yes, but only if he was at a sort of a sensitive part of the skin. I don't think if I think if I'm going to touch him now, he's going to fly away, which I don't want to do. I just want to show you how big he is compared to my fingernail. And I don't think it can, just judging by the size of its mouth parts. I think it probably could on sensitive skin, but on the tough and hard skin of my fingers, because of course your skin is much tougher on your hands and on your fingertips, on the tough hard skin of my finger, I don't think he'd actually manage. I don't think he'd have much success. And he's living on a type of flower, it's one of my favorite flowers that we get out here, called a string of stars. But unfortunately, it's past its flowering point, so most of the flowers have died off. But a string of stars is a really, really nice, particularly beautiful plant. Samantha, what a lovely question coming through from you. And let's hop up and carry on our journey, because it's getting quite hot in the sun and there's no shade where we are, so we'll keep walking so that we can chat about the answer to it. Samantha wants to know if there's any plants that will store water for the different animals. Yes, Samantha, there are plants. I just wanted to check around here. No, I think it's run away. There was a spider that I wanted to show you, but unfortunately you've got to pick and choose which animals are going to be available when you first start. So Samantha, there's something known as an African potato. That is a type of plant that the animals know that if they could dig up, they will be able to get to the bulb underneath. And the bulb is much like a normal potato. It's full of water, it's full of starch, and it's a very good source of food and water for the different animals, and potentially for human beings as well. So there are different types of plant. Now, we don't get the big melons that you might find in the desert that a lot of the animals rely upon, but lots and lots of these plants. Even if I were to, and let's find a good example here. I want to show you a good example of where an elephant has pushed over a tree and brought up the roots, because of course every plant has a root system, or at least every tree, and big plant has a root system that acts as a place to store water. And if you're a big elephant, that is a wonderful place to go and to chew, especially in our winter time, because our winter we actually more typically call our dry season, because that is when it's the driest. We don't have any rain at that time of year. Now in summer here in South Africa, that's when we get our rain, at least in this part of South Africa. So in winter, what elephants will do, and this isn't the best example, this tree's actually survived, but at some point a massive elephant, this whole tree here at some point was standing upright. It would have been an upright tree, this part here. And at some point an elephant has come up to the tree, put its head up against it, or its trunk, and pushed against it, and pushed and pushed and rocked until this tree fell down and landed on its side. And then what the elephant would have done is it probably wouldn't have snacked on the leaves, because actually these leaves are really gross. And I know if I offered Jandre a bite of one, he would say, no, thank you very much. You want some? All right, we'll both do it. How's about that? Jandre is saying yes, he will try a leaf. I'll try and find a nice. Let's split one, because I don't feel like eating a whole leaf. And I'll show you why the elephants probably wouldn't have been after the leaves, because when you put it in your mouth, which I'm going to do now, it takes. I'm not going to follow that. It takes away all of your spit or your saliva. It's very astringent. So elephants only eat this when they're absolutely desperate. Jandre? There we go, into Jandre's mouth. We're going to have to go and find some water after this. But what the elephant would have been after would have been the root systems. Now, what's happened here, and why this isn't the best example, but I was trying to find you a good example and I couldn't find one right away, is that this tree's actually survived. So an elephant has come and fed off the roots here. Long time ago. This would have been where the elephants were chewing on the roots that have been dug up, and they are sticking out. And they would have got lots and lots of water from that. But somehow, because this tree still had some roots, there you go, this is roots here, this is a big root over here, because it still has roots attached to the soil and still in the soil itself, it survived. And there it is, up, like growing upwards now. So this whole tree is still alive despite the fact that it's been pushed onto its side. Now, Elijah, you want to know how an elephant's push a tree over. I'm going to show you. Except I'm going to take a much smaller tree. Now, I am not a very big person, as you may or may not have noticed. I'm not a particularly big human. An elephant is probably a little bit bigger than me. Not probably, definitely. But let's pretend that I am a 5-ton elephant. I need to find an appropriately sized tree for this. This could be interesting. That one's got thorns. I don't want to push that one over. I feel like I might have tied myself into a knot here. Let me find one. Okay, we'll go with the monkey orange. No, we'll go with the acacia tree. That's cheating, isn't it? Well, I suppose maybe not. If I were 5 tons, which I'm not, which is over 10,000 pounds, which I'm not, this tree would be proportionately much, much larger than it is. So what an elephant does is, because they are so incredibly strong, this is a silly idea, this has got thorns, they put their head up against the tree and they slowly but surely push. And I'm not going to do this because I don't want to poke my eye out, but they'll push and they'll push and they'll push until eventually the weight of the tree pushes it over. Now, I'm not going to push this poor tree over. It didn't do anything to me. It didn't offend me in any way. So I'm going to leave it alone, although an elephant has been feeding here. You can see it's been chewed by an elephant at some point. Right, well, since I failed in my task of pushing over a tree, you'll just have to take my word to it that elephants are very big and very good at pushing over trees. Let us, I think, change the subject and head over to James so that we can find out what he's doing.
Yuck! Now, as Jamie was showing you, those leaves don't taste so good, and the reason I'm eating them is because we're stuck. We have nowhere to go. I've had to climb this tree in order to try and find something for Brian and I to eat. We've got a flat tire, and we don't have a spare tire. So we're going to be stuck here probably for the next 2 months. What are we going to eat, Brian?
I don't know.
I don't know either, but it's not going to be leaves. And what you have to understand out here, everybody, is that if you cannot hunt things, well, then it's quite difficult. Now, I'm not a very good hunter, so I don't know what we're going to eat out here while we wait for someone to come and help us. Probably some caterpillars, we could eat those. Probably some fruits, we'll try and find some fruits. But what I am going to show you while I sit in here and think about what on earth it is that I'm going to have for dinner, I'm going to show you this funny leaf. Can you see that it's got a little piece of missing green in the middle of it? Can you see that, Brian? What that is called, everybody, is a leaf tear. Now, a leaf tear is a very special kind of caterpillar, and it's such a special caterpillar, and it's so small that it's able to eat in the middle of the leaf. Now, you all know what a leaf looks like. You've all held leaves in your hands. You'll know that they are very, very thin. So if I bring the leaf back here, you can see it's very thin. Ooh, I nearly fell out the tree there. It's very thin indeed. But there's a caterpillar living between the top and the bottom, and that's called a leaf tear, and he manages to eat the middle, and that means that he doesn't have to eat the really hard, horrible stuff in the middle. Anyway, this particular tree is not going to be good for us to eat, and the only other thing I wanted to show you was basically how a baboon or a monkey would do, and they'd sit in a tree like this, and they would find fruits and eat them, and maybe they'd find a caterpillar, they'd look on the branch like this and eat a caterpillar, and then they'd scratch a little bit like this, and then they'd probably help their friends have a little bit of a scratch, and that's what they'll do, and hopefully we'll see one of them. Now, I suppose, Brian, I should try and get out of this tree, shouldn't I? Do you think I'm going to hurt myself, Brian? I hope so too. Oh dear, everybody. I didn't expect the tree to break. Anyway, there it is. You can see we were talking about elephants. Jamie tried to push the tree over. She didn't manage to do it. We managed to break our tree, didn't we, Brian? Indeed. I think that's quite impressive, really. Anyway. Marvellous. Good. Okay, excellent. Let me go around this way. We really can't go anywhere there, everybody. We're just going to have to plug in a little bit, see if you've got any questions for us, and then we'll probably head across to... Oh, we do have a question. Hello, Niall. You're wondering if we eat any of the animals. Niall, we would if we could eat some of the animals, but it's very difficult to catch them. Now, in ancient times, or in fact not very ancient times, a few hundred years ago, people would absolutely catch things like impala. I don't know if you've seen any impala today, because I've been stuck in a tree, but impala are a small antelope about the size of a white-tailed deer, and one of those would feed a family for about a week. So absolutely, people used to eat the animals here. I have eaten some impala sometimes, very delicious indeed. Sometimes warthog, which is like a pig, and we eat those sometimes. But you don't have to eat a lot of animal out here to get enough meat and enough food. So really, if you did eat animals out here, it would be absolutely fine. We wouldn't do any damage to the ecosystem because, we of course are predators, aren't we, Brian? We are indeed predators. Okay, let's see if I can't find something else over here. Hang on, there is a question. Oh, Ella, you're wondering about how many leaves are poisonous. Ella, there are not many poisonous leaves around here. There are one or two. One specifically, which I can't see around here, is called a tamboti. And tamboti is, it produces a sap. And now this is a very important lesson for anybody who goes into the wilderness to learn. If a tree produces a white sap, we call it latex. If a tree produces that, it's almost certainly going to be probably slightly poisonous, so then you don't eat it and you don't touch it. You don't put anything in your mouth in the wild unless you know exactly what that tree is and if it is causing or can possibly cause some harm. I wouldn't put anything in my mouth that I couldn't identify. And that's especially true in a wilderness area that perhaps you don't understand. Okay, that's very important, everybody. Right, let's go and have a little look around here and see if we can't find something else. Because, around in the bush, what you find is that every little piece of wilderness is an ecosystem on its own. So if I look at this broken down tree, it might look like a piece of kind of bush rubbish, if you like, but I bet you that if I lift it up, we will find something interesting underneath it. I hope that we will find something interesting under. Well, here we go. Look at this. This is actually quite interesting. Let's have a look here. Even this tiny, funny piece of branch, old piece of wood, is a kind of ecosystem on its own. Now, we're going to be quite careful about opening it up, because you can see there that very clearly there have been spiders living here, and many of you will be quite afraid of spiders, I imagine. Now, spiders that like to live under this sort of thing... I found a spider. Oh, Brian, can you see the spider? I just want to hold the leaf there because I don't want the spider to come towards me. Now this, everybody, I think is actually a very small, what we call violin spider. Now this is exactly the spider that I was hoping to find for you, because it's actually quite dangerous. Now, very few spiders out here are dangerous at all. Most of them are completely harmless. But this violin spider is quite dangerous to people. If it bit me, I would probably be very sore, and it would also make it difficult for me to breathe. It would start, the poison would act on my lungs and what we call my nervous system, and so I would struggle to be able to breathe, and I might even vomit and become sick. I don't think it would kill me, but it would certainly make me very sick indeed, and this is what I was hoping to find under here. But now, I've said the spider is dangerous. It's only dangerous if you are nasty to the spider. So I've been a little bit nasty to the spider by sort of disturbing it. So while you look at it, let me just find out if there are any questions that you might have. I'll plug myself back in so that I can hear Kirsten, who's directing and taking your questions. There we go. I've been a little bit nasty to this thing by disturbing it, I'm afraid, but we're going to put it back. And remember that when you're out in the wilderness, you must make very sure that you put back whatever it is that you've moved, and that you don't leave anything that you didn't take there yourself. Okay, so that's an important lesson. All right, let's put him back there. I don't want to disturb him for too long. It's actually probably a she, and I don't want to disturb her for too long. When she's big, everyone, she will be that big. She'll be that big. Isn't that interesting? Nima, you wonder why she lives in the bark like this. Well, she lives in the bark, Nima, because this is where what she likes to eat lives, and it's a really good place for her to escape from things that like to eat her. So a bird would eat her, or maybe a mongoose. A mongoose is a little mammal that would come along and turn over all the logs just like I did and find a spider like that and swallow it. You can eat things like this if you have to. They're not too dangerous to eat. It's if they bite you that it's a problem. And Nina, if we look... Ooh, this is amazing. Hang on, there's another spider in here. There. Brian, can you see it? Just glistening in the sunlight there. It's right underneath. Anyway, I think this one might be the mother, or maybe that's the female and this is the male. Remember, female spiders always much bigger than male spiders. Now we have a very, very, very special treat for you, everybody, while we try and figure our way out of living in the wilderness for the rest of our lives. Brent Leo Smith is off to the far east, and he has got amazing prints of cats. Go and take a look.
Indeed we do. Jamie found him this morning, and we've been checking every patch of shade near where he was left, and we have found him. He is a magnificent male leopard. Isn't he beautiful? He's also very hot like us, but unlike us, he can't sweat. So if he moves around too much in the heat, it can be quite bad for him. Now, Jameer is wondering, are leopards carnivores? Indeed they are, Jameer. So those little impala we saw earlier would be perfect for him to catch and eat. So he eats meat, so he's got to catch it. Because out here, there's no grocery store for the animals. They've got to go get their own dinner. Now, of course, the impalas are very fast, so they can be quite difficult to catch. And for every animal he chases, he only catches probably about 1 in 10. Now, he's just over 4 years old, and he's turning into a really beautiful, beautiful male leopard. Now, I've been watching him for nearly 2 years now. He is magnificent. Hey, big boy. Hi, Cameron. Cameron wants to know, do leopards climb trees? They can, Cameron. They're actually, out of all the big cats, they're the best tree climbers. They are able to take almost their whole body weight up a tree. So he probably weighs about 180 pounds, and he could probably take another 180 pound animal that he's caught up the tree with him. Fiona is wondering, what else do leopards eat besides impala? Well, Fiona, he eats all small to medium-sized antelope. So, and he, being a male leopard, can actually eat some big antelope, kudu, inyala, bushbuck, duiker, steenbok. He'll even go at baby zebra, baby wildebeest. So he's got quite a varied diet, but leopards are really adaptable. They'll also eat birds and snakes and fish. Oh, is he moving deeper into the shade? So when he moves like that, it means he's been lying in one spot for so long that the ground underneath him has got hot. So he's just trying to move to a slightly cooler piece of ground. Now, leopards normally hunt at night, but all predators are opportunists. So if something happened to wander up towards him, and Jerry was wondering about that. But if something happened to wander up here now, he would definitely, oh, look at those teeth, take advantage of it. So normally they hunt at night, but they will try at any time of the day if there's a chance. Now, Mrs. Ballard would like me to tell you guys what the difference is between a leopard and a cheetah. Now, apart from their build, leopards are actually quite a lot bigger or more muscular than cheetah. Cheetah are taller and skinnier and don't weigh as much and are not as strong. And also, if you look at the leopard's eyes, you'll see there's white or a pale color under the leopard's eyes, and that is to make sure that he can grab all the ambient light from around when he's hunting at night, whereas cheetah is more of a diurnal hunter, so they will hunt during the day. And also, if we look at his body, you can see there's lots of spots, but they're more rosettes, but a cheetah is completely spotted. So there we go, that is what a cheetah looks like. You see it's got black under the eyes. We can zoom a bit more there. So there we go, you can see the black under the eyes, and you can see a different shaped head, a much more round head, and more rounded ears, and you can see the body is far more streamlined, far more subtly built, so built for speed and not so much for strength. And as I said, the spot, when we look at him, he's got what we call rosettes. So he's got spots, and then he's got a darker color in the middle. So very, very different, and also very different. Leopards are mostly nocturnal. Cheetah are diurnal, or mostly actually crepuscular. Now, crepuscular is a wonderful word. It means most active at dusk and dawn. Now, what Mr. Quarantine, this leopard, is going to do is going to wait till it gets cooler before he moves anywhere. He's going to sit here in the shade enjoying a bit of a breeze, and hopefully for him the biting flies don't find him, because that's the only thing that might make him move in this heat. But while we sit here to see what he does next, let's go back to Jamie, who's out on foot.
Something fascinating to show. Perhaps not quite as fascinating as a quarantine beautiful male leopard, and I'm so glad that you've had a chance to see him. I had a centipede to show you, but it's one, and I have absolutely no idea where on earth it has vanished to. It has all but completely disappeared. It must have gone into this leaf litter somewhere. I'm hesitant. Now, centipedes are... I thought I saw it, but I did not. Centipedes are one of my least favorite animals, but they are fascinating. They've got a very, very strong bite, and it's actually quite a venomous bite, so it is a sore bite. It won't kill you. It's not like a very dangerous snake, but it does make you feel very, very uncomfortable. Now, the last time I saw the centipede, it was running towards Gendre, so I'm not entirely sure if it's not somewhere in Gendre's shoe, maybe in his socks, just sort of aiming to try and bite him on the ankle. Who knows? But it's vanished. It has completely disappeared. We're going to stay away from these thick areas. So what we're doing at the moment is we're walking through, and I don't see it anywhere, Gendre. I'll let you know when we are on foot. And there's some really, really dense trees here. So we're walking. We don't bump into any animals that are hiding there in shade. I wanted to know, are there more herbivores, carnivores, or omnivores? There are more herbivores by a very, very big stretch. So there's one type of antelope called an impala, that there are nearly 100,000 in this particular area. And that's just one species of antelope. And we've got somewhere around 13 to 15 different species of antelope. One species, 100,000 antelope. There are probably roughly around 15 or so thousand elephants. But to compare those to carnivores, for example, there are around 2,000 lions, around 2,000 leopards, maybe 1,000 cheetah, give or take, and around about 500 wild dog. So there are far less carnivores than there are herbivores. That's the big carnivores, though. Bear in mind, there's also little carnivores, something like a dwarf mongoose, for example. And there's probably slightly more dwarf mongoose in this area than there are anywhere, than there are lions or leopards or something like that. But generally, almost always, in almost any ecosystem, you'll find that there are more herbivores than there are carnivores, and that's because of the energy loss in the feeding process. So herbivores eat from plants, that's their primary source of nutrients, and a bit of that energy is lost, but a lot of it goes into the herbivore. Then when the predator comes along, the carnivore comes along and eats that animal, a lot of the energy is lost there. So there need to be more herbivores to support the carnivores and keep nature in a balance. So to make sure that there's no, go away, fly. It's about to land on my nose. To make sure that there are enough to feed the herbivores, but also not too many carnivores, that they eat all the herbivores and then the herbivores can't survive. So it's a very, very delicate balance. Omnivores, there's probably about the same amount, maybe just a little bit more than the predators, but I think there's probably about equal the amount of omnivores and predators. I think let us walk back around here because it is getting quite sweaty. So I'm going to go off and find some shade. Now, I hear very sadly that it is time to say goodbye to the 3 schools that joined us for this afternoon. I'm sorry to hear that, and I hope that you had an amazing time, and that the rest of your school day is as exciting as this particular part was. And I hope that we will see you again very shortly, and there will be some names that I recognize answering questions. Bye-bye to all of you, and for our regular viewers, we will catch up with you soon.
So we're still sitting next to one of our favorite leopards, Mr. Q. Now he hasn't moved too far from where Jamie left him this morning, maybe about 50 or 60 meters. Probably fine trying to escape the biting flies. But resting up in the shade of a guarri bush. Now Jamie said he looked like he was on a mission this morning, so hopefully he continues to mission as it gets a bit cooler. I don't think he's going to move too far for the next little while. Hi Joshua. Joshua's wondering how we tell the gender and age of leopards. Well, from his physical size, you can immediately see he's a male. We know his specific age because we know when he was born. He is one of Karula's successful litters, and he had a littermate called Djuma. But Djuma has moved south of the northern Sabi Sands into the central Sabi Sands, where his quarantine has moved out to the eastern, but has stayed in the north. Now, I would have probably, if I hadn't known how old he is, I probably would have said he was a bit older. He's very big for his age. The fact that he's scent marking and putting pressure on his older half-brother, Shivambalan, already is incredible. And he is a beast for his age. But generally, you look at the size, you look at his face, you look at how many scars, tatters, you look at the ears, and on sort of male leopards over 6 or 7 years old, you've got a very defined dewlap. His dewlap isn't quite there yet, but it's getting there. Hey, mister. He is an incredible leopard. Very, very relaxed, and often not often, I mean in the past he's given us hours and hours of sensational viewing, even when he is trying to bite the biting flies back. For me, he's just always been a very active leopard in comparison to the others. I mean, even though it's hot, his head's up. Hello, Rebecca. Rebecca's wondering, do leopards come in black? Indeed they do, Rebecca. It's a very rare form of pigment or color variation. It's a recessive gene, and it's called menelism. So black panthers are actually black leopards, and they come from certain parts of India. They've been recorded, certain parts of Africa, not too far from here, up in the mountains, and in the rainforest of central Congo. I've actually seen a black leopard in the wild, in northern Zululand of all places, but I was quite young, but very, very, very rare. Now, even though they are black, you can still see the rosettes through the skin. Well, we're going to sit here and wait for Mr. Q to get on the move. While we do that, it seems like Commander Bond has repaired all his tires.
Now, everybody, Brent Leo Smith came across here the other day and he found himself a painted snipe. Now, a painted snipe is a very rare bird, and his affianced came here the day after that, and I'm afraid she couldn't find it, so he was not flavour of the month. Let's see if we can spot it here. There are two Egyptian gooses, the worst parents of Djuma. There they are. That's one of them. They've obviously had a lover's spat. That's probably why it is they're not very good at raising their babies. And we did see two other Egyptian gooses at twin dams about 2 days ago, and they seem to be much more successful. They've got 8 little goslings. I do not see a painted snipe anywhere. Do you, Brian?
No.
Are you aware of what a painted snipe looks like?
No.
I will therefore show you in the book, so that when you look around and see a bird that looks like a painted snipe, you might say to me, "Oh, James, I seem to have spotted a painted snipe," and I may then train my binoculars on it, and we shall whoop and yell for joy at the sight of the painted snipe. Are you with me?
Yes.
Excellent. There is the painted snipe, number 2. A very small bird, just 1 foot long. That looks quite big for a painted snipe anyway. That's what he looks like. And you can see why he's called a painted snipe. Can you see, Brian?
Okay.
It's because he looks quite painted. And he's got pretty yellow legs. Very nice. And he likes to live here in amongst the mud and eating probably little snails and things, I suspect. But we don't find them here often. They're often in much more marshy, wet areas than this. And so I think he was probably here by mistake, on his way to somewhere else. There is, however, also a 3-banded plover. And that looks like quite a young one. They are not migratory. Well, they're one of the few non-migratory plovers. I'm just going to have one more look. Now, I must just tell you, it's quite amusing on the radio. There is a new fellow in one of the camps, and so listening to him trying to navigate the radio as if it's some kind of telephone is very amusing indeed. Anyway, there we have it. Now, I'm just going to quickly talk to Johan on the Game Drive channel, because he's looking for me. I'm quite honoured to be looked for at all. And there's Beaverbrook Dam. There was a time, of course, when we had so many buffalo here and various elephant herds coming down to drink. Anyway, while I get hold of Johan, Jamie has a track. Hopefully it leads to an animal. We'll catch up with you shortly.
I'm on the track.
Oh, we have a track that, well, I don't think it's going to lead to an animal unless we want to really work very hard at trying to track down a squirrel, which will be relatively tricky to do. But what we do have is a mystery that Herbie has found for us. Now, Herbie, by the way, you might see him every now and again. He is the guide who walks ahead of us and makes sure that we're safe. And he's found this for us. And it's a very, very interesting track indeed. This, first of all, what I wanted to show you is what a difference light makes in terms of seeing a track like this. And Jean, if I do this, does it make it clearer?
Yeah.
It does, much clearer. It does to me on where I am. It makes it hugely clear, or a huge difference to the way in which I can see the track. So this is a squirrel track apparently. I didn't call it as a squirrel track at first. I was going with something else. I thought it was a little bit large for a squirrel track, but then of course Herbie reminded me very succinctly that tracks spread out as mud gets drier. So this is the back of the foot, and these are the delicate little toes. My first thought was Janet, but it's too small, and it's also got 5 toes, not 4 of a Janet. But the most interesting aspect of it, if I take the shade away just so I can show you what remains, the most interesting aspect of it is what on earth the squirrel was doing. So we're in a dried up puddle, and actually quite a pungent dried up puddle now that I'm spending a bit more time down here. It's actually quite stinky, and this squirrel must have come and stood essentially on its back leg. So it would, that one track has got to be its back leg track. The other one is in the crack of the mud, and you can't really see it in any detail, and then dug. So it was digging for something, and that's the only explanation behind these incredible, whoa dear, I nearly slid into the puddle itself, into these scratch marks. And this here would have presumably been where whatever it was after. As to what it was after, your guess is absolutely as good as mine. I don't want to stand in here, but it is interesting. Herbie suggested, and John Ray both suggested, a bug, that perhaps it was after some kind of bug. I'm bemused by that. It seems like an awful lot of effort, because if I go do something quite revolting, if I start digging in here, this is seriously clayey. Now, I really would like to antiseptic my hands after that, so I'll at least give them a good wash when I get home. This is seriously clayey. Now, imagine a squirrel. Ugh. Seriously, this is clay. Look here. It's still on my fingers. It won't get off. So imagine a squirrel, tiny little feet, delicate little paws, with all of that fine fur all the way around it. And squirrels do have delicate fur all in between their pads, and they're sharp little nails. Now imagine it scurrying through this thick mud. What an incredible mission that must have been for the squirrel afterwards, to then sit and clean it off, essentially, to get rid of this mud. And it would have had to, because this is actually, I mean, goodness gracious, this is sticky. Can't get it off at all. This would have been a serious mission to try and rub off its fur. Now, what on earth this nut job squirrel was doing is the essence of my segment here. What on earth this crazy, stupid little squirrel was doing, I do not know. All I know is that it's left an amazing amount of claw marks that have gone very deep and actually give us an idea of just how sharp a little claws are. The other interesting thing, of course, is that it's done it here. Can you see it there, Jean-Andre? And here. What were you after, little squirrel, in the cracks of this mud? Oh, smelly. What was in here? I've been trying to figure this out and wondered if maybe it wasn't a frog living in the mud. But I doubt it. Don't think so. I mean, not really in the typical diet of a squirrel. I suppose it's possible. Anything's possible. I have to confess, when I first saw it, I thought it was Herbie scratching with a stick. That's what I thought that he'd been up to. And something else has been through here as well, now that I look at this. Oh. Now, Christopher, you want to know, because there in the US where you are, you have something called a mud wasp, and you were wondering if we have them here as well. We do. We do have wasps that do use mud. There are some called potter wasps that will build it around. Jerry's got one living in her bedroom. Jean-Andre, didn't you have one living in your room? Kirsty. Kirsty's got one living in her room. That's who it is. Kirsty's got one living in her room. So yes, we do have, I don't know if they're part of the same family, or if it's an example of convergent evolution, in that you've got two different species that have evolved separately to do something very similar. there's a very, very good chance that they relate to the same family. So yes, we do have them here. And speaking of things that are related, or at least connected to each other in some way, Brent's had a leopard. Let's go and have a look at a leopard tortoise with James.
Right, everybody, I'm out of the car because this tortoise was moving away and I didn't want him to disappear before you came to us. He was having a drink here and I'm just a little worried that we've disturbed him. So before we continue looking at him, I'm going to grab the vehicle and go around the other side of him because the sun, as you can see, is completely on the wrong side of him there. So let's just move around. He is a leopard tortoise, obviously, but he's a very big one. He's about a foot large. Let me just quickly move around this little puddle. There we go. There, he's now highly mobile, Brian. You see that? Can you keep up with him, or will it be blurry?
Might be blurry.
Look at him go, everybody. He's in a real rush now to get to the greenery. He's had his drink. Now he wants something to eat. And who knows if he'll get there in the next week or the next month. Stealthy as he goes, wizened old face stuck out of his very pretty mottled shell, blinking away the sunlight. Very pleased for the greenery of the summer. I suspect what he's going to do in all seriousness is head towards that next thicket there, see if he can get himself into some shade where he thinks we can't see him anymore. So if you've got all afternoon, we'll just probably sit here and watch him, won't we, Brian?
We will.
Yes. There he goes. Come on. That's it. Well done. I mean, there must be literally thousands of these things around here, all of them now sitting in shade like this fellow is about to. Unless he just moves on to the next patch. Oh, he's hiding. You see that, Brian? What he's doing, he's going behind the bush so we can't see him anymore. I just wonder how such a ponderous animal has managed to survive the slings and arrows, if you like, of outrageous history. Do you like my mixing in of Shakespeare there, Brian? Yes. It's the only Shakespeare line I know. It's from Hamlet, everyone, in case you're wondering. Graham, I think what you're asking is partly true, but not quite. You're saying, do tortoises store water at the back of their shells? No, not really, but they do have a little sort of bladder, if you like, just which is situated at the back of the body, but it's not, as far as I know, it's not in the shell. It's actually within within the skin, if you like, within the body. And that water is released when they're picked up, and that's why we don't pick them up, because it can dehydrate them. I wouldn't have been averse to picking them up at the waterhole here, except that I think it probably does a bit of psychological damage to pick them up. I don't think they like it very much, and because they're unable to say, "Oi, put me down," we're just not really sure how much trauma it does cause them. He's succeeded, Brian. His stealthy movement has managed to get away from you. Well, Jackie J, you've, I'm sure, seen Jurassic Park, and you're wondering about how it is that this reptile, or what this reptile has those spiky things on his legs for. And in much the same way, I think that the dinosaurs used to have spines on bits of their body, this fellow has got spines on his in order to use them for defense. I think when he pulls his legs into his body, those spines kind of stick out. That's what a predator would come to first. So that's what they'd try and bite, and perhaps they'd be slightly less than, less than keen to engage with them. They've also got quite nasty claws, but I think those are more for grip than they are for defense. Oh, Paul, you're absolutely right, and I couldn't agree with you more. You say their legs look like elephant legs, don't they, just? They look exactly like elephant legs. An elephant is substantially faster than a tortoise, of course. But I agree with you totally. They're sort of straight and squat and, well, pillar-like, really. That is marvelous. Holly, you wondering about the sight that a leopard tortoise has? I'm not sure how well they see. I think they see pretty well. I mean, for a reptile, scent is extremely important. They have a very sophisticated vomeronasal organ, which is just below the brain, helps them to interpret the slightest hint of molecules of scent in the air. So I think that's probably more important. I think, like most reptiles, they can probably sense the vibrations of our movement on and other animals' movement on the ground, but I suspect their sight is not bad. I wouldn't say that it's better than ours necessarily, but it's probably better than that of a rhino, for example, which isn't a reptile, Brian. No, it's a mammal. Yes. Yes. And there he will sit pretending to be a rock for the remainder of the day. Well done, Mr. Tortoise. Thank you for sharing your life with us briefly. Good. Well, that was a stroke of luck, Brian. Now we will. That wasn't a stroke of luck, really. What have we hit? Shall we carry on? It was a fairly large termite mound, that. Oh well. That's what Scott Dyson used to call reverse by touch. Right, Brent Leo Smith is with Quarantine the Leopard, and I think that he may have found himself a small snack. Maybe.
There was just this flurry of excitement as Quarantine was moving towards the Cheetah Plains pan, and he was just walking lethargically through the heat, and then he pounced on a little scrub hare. There we go, he's got the scrub hare now. Unfortunately, it did take him a little while to kill it, but he's now killed it, and that's what I mean. You never know what's going to happen next out here. He's busy plucking the hair at the moment. He hasn't really started feeding. Of course, a small meal like this, he is quite hungry at the moment. It's not really going to sate him much, so he might get on the move again as it gets cooler. He was on his way, we think, to go have a drink at the Cheetah Plains pan when he stumbled upon this poor, unsuspecting little scrub hare. When he first grabbed it, I initially thought it was a duiker. It was making sounds like a baby duiker or a baby steenbok, but as we got closer and we could see what was going on, we saw that it was indeed a little scrub hare. It seems to be quite a fluffy scrub hare by the amount of fur that's getting caught in his mouth. And he's doing quite a good job at plucking off all the fur. Now, for sensitive viewers, please, this can be sometimes a bit gruesome, especially with a smaller carcass. It can come apart quite quickly, and there can be quite a lot of blood and guts. So please be careful. If you don't like watching this type of stuff, now is the time to just go have a cup of coffee, or maybe change the channel for a few minutes. But unfortunately, this is nature. These leopards need to kill to eat and to survive, as much as the scrub hare needs to avoid at all costs to survive. You can see he's actually removed most of the fur incredibly quickly, so he should start feeding quite soon. So with this very small prey like this, he's probably going to eat it whole. Tony would like to know, would the hare give him hairballs? Oh, excuse me, Tony. Thank you, Dave. Most definitely it would, Tony. It will give him hairballs. Most things a leopard eat will give them hairballs. So, hopefully, he'll be able to get rid of them with not too much effort. So as I was saying, with a small piece of prey like this, he's probably going to eat everything, all the bones. There we go, you can see he's eating the head right now. He's taken the one ear off already, and with bigger prey he'll normally go for the internal organs first, but with a small little thing like this, it's not going to last too long at all. So he might still go for a drink. There we go. It's now it is now a headless hare. So even though we often find most of the cats on bigger kills, they do constantly make these little kills like this, and they are complete opportunists. I mean, it's nearly 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and he still took that opportunity when it aroused. Just jumped onto it, and I'm afraid it was the end for the poor scrub hare. Hi AJ. Now on a small animal like this, AJ is wondering, will a leopard be able to digest the bones? Yes, I think most of the bones will be digestible. They're going to be quite soft and quite easy for a leopard to crunch into small enough bits. So yes, I'd say probably. On bigger antelope, sometimes they're not going to be able to digest the bones. Any bit of bone that they're not able to digest is generally passed through, and you will find it in their feces. So it'll be on the Game Drive channel quickly. Andrew Ephraim, come in. Andrew, if you're copying, we've relocated quarantine. He's just caught a scrub hare, just to the to the east of Cheetah Plains Pan. Sorry about that, just letting the Cheetah Plains guys know, they're just getting moving. So I said, now, that poor little scrub hare is a mere snack for Mr. Q, and he is still quite hungry, so he probably will hunt again this evening. But leopards are incredibly adaptable. They'll eat hares, they'll eat termites, they'll eat fish, they'll eat lizards. There's not much left. I mean, he's already nearly 50% through that poor little scrub hare. Afternoon tea. Now remember guys, this is happening live from South Africa. We're in the Greater Kruger National Park, 8.5 million acres of unfenced wilderness where these incredible creatures can wander free. And what we're going to sit here. Hopefully he's going to head towards the Cheetah Plains pan for a drink while we wait patiently. Let's go see what Jamie's up to.
It sounds as though Brent's been having the most amazing time with a quarantine. Hopefully he does decide to go and have a drink and really complete the afternoon of beautiful images. And I just wanted to update you all on the arrival of Taylor, just by the way, because I am for the first time in about, I don't know, 8 years, wearing earrings, because Taylor's come back from leave and very kindly bought presents for us. So she's very, very sweet. You'll all be happy to know that she has returned from her holiday. After a very long flight and a very long drive this morning, she's having a break. She's having an afternoon off, but you'll all be thrilled to hear that Taylor is back and she will be returning on drive once again. Right, now we have to navigate the minefield. I have a confession to make. I have a secret. James's flat tire, I think it was my fault. And I think, we won't tell James. In fact, I'm relatively certain I know it's my fault. I thought we'd got away. But when I was trying to get into quarantine this morning, I drove over a series of thorns, of thorns much like these thorns that we're about to step over now. Now these are green thorns, so they're not quite as savage as the ones that I drove over this morning. I saw them right at the last minute. I backtracked, I went all the way round, I checked the tires all the way home. We were fine, we were scot-free. Sorry, James. I feel very guilty leaving him with a flat tire. It is just the way of things, though. But what I'm basically saying is I would like to avoid having a puncture to my foot, as I'm sure Jandre would as well. It is the value of good walking shoes. Believe it or not, these are actually quite good walking shoes. The thorns don't tend to make it through. This particular tree, these particular thorns are part of the green thorn, also known as the Y thorn, or the torchwood. And the reason they are called that, oh goodness, I would have taken the hardest branch to get, wouldn't I? There we go. Clamber carefully over, there we go. The reason they are called that is I can't find a good example. Oh, there I can. White thorn, that typical divided look to the thorn, it's sort of Y-shaped thorn, essentially. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because we talk about the Balanites tree or the torchwood tree all the time, but we never really have a chance to closely examine its leaves and its thorns and what makes it such a beautiful tree. This is obviously a dead one. There is, however, a live one just behind Jandre. So if we make our way over to that, you'll actually have a chance to see why it is called a green thorn and what is so very special about it. Now, this particular specimen that I'm looking at has been pushed over by elephants, so it's now having to change its growth pattern almost completely. Oh, it's very nice and shady in here. It's like a little sheltered alcove. It's been pushed over, so it's now changing its growth pattern, and it's now growing much like that silver cluster leaf that we started the drive with earlier. It's growing now vertically from its horizontal trunk. It goes to show the incredible resilience of a torchwood tree. And the reason it is called a torchwood tree is because it has, I'm looking for a seed, but we're not really in fruiting season for torchwood trees, is because the seed is very, very rich in oils and was actually used as a torch. By torch, I mean quite literally, not in the South African way that we refer to a torch, which is a flashlight. I mean a literal flame torch. And the roots are very, very alkaline as a way of, it's very soapy. Actually, the roots are very, very soapy. And animals like porcupines and elephants, when they have an upset stomach, they'll go and eat the roots of this tree to calm down, essentially alkalize their stomachs. Now, Debbie wants to know if there are any cacti here. No, we have aloes and we have succulent plants. Cacti, no, there are invasive species of cacti that have been introduced. I have seen not that many of them, but I have seen them around. There is one particular one known as the prickly pear, which we all hate, and speaking from experience, is an absolute nightmare to remove. It doesn't want to leave. As soon as you cut it down, it grows back. You've got to dig it out, and then you've got to burn it. And I don't know whether you've ever tried burning a succulent. Not very easy at all. It's actually very tricky to do. So getting rid of a prickly pear is a tricky thing, and it's of course one of those lovely things that was introduced because people loved its flowers. They were oh so pretty for their gardens, and so they brought them in at a time where these were farmhouses. I know Brent was talking about the history this morning on his bushwalk. They brought in these lovely flowers, including prickly pears, which turned out to be highly, highly invasive. So then, how to solve this problem? Well, they thought perhaps we should bring in a special type of insect that feeds only off prickly pears, biological warfare, if you will, as a way of dealing with it. Turned out to be not such a good way of dealing with it, because this particular mite, and I can't remember what it was called in the places that it was introduced, proceeded to outcompete every local species, and nothing preyed on it. So therefore, just listening to the woodland kingfisher, nothing preyed on it, so therefore it increased very dramatically in numbers. So it just goes to show that best laid plans of mice and men can sometimes have very, very unpredictable results. So now we rely on natural removal of things like prickly pears. I was going to say, speaking of prickly pears, let's go over to James, but that sounds a lot meaner than I intended it to be. So let us head over to the wonderful James Henry and find out how he's doing and if he's not too terribly prickly about the flat tire.
Right, we're just coming around the corner here, and I was struggling to find something to say that was of interest there, so that's what I'm going to say. We were coming around the corner, we had a nice hornbill sighting, and we had, there's a cuckoo, great spotted cuckoo, which I keep telling you is so rare, and yet we keep seeing them day in and day out. Maybe they're not that rare. Well, clearly they're not in this area. There are dozens of them. The other thing we saw was some waterbuck, but they disappeared into some thick bush. Now, Brian, if I were to say to you, what tree do you think that cuckoo is in, what would you say?
I don't know.
Well, that is a good answer. I'm going to have a nearly impossible tree quiz, everybody. Let's see if you can tell me what tree that is. Hashtag Safari Live, question to WildEarthTV, batteries not included, terms and conditions apply. The great spotted cuckoo is in it because it's looking for tree holes. It's looking for tree holes in which maybe a potential starling host might be nesting. It could also be looking for caterpillars and things, I suppose, but that call it's making it's a sort of territorial call. There it goes. Can you see it? It's a starling actually flying off. That's very cool. There's a Birchall starling flying off. That is what that dastardly bird is trying to parasitize. Fly, starling, fly, and find another place to nest. Go, and be free. Good. Do you think he'll come back here?
No.
I hope not. Good. Right, on we go. Right, apparently Ed Smith is having a wonderful time at Cheetah Plains. Go and find out what he's found now.
Well, from one spotted cat to another, we've just left a leopard that killed a scrub hare right next to us. And if you want to see the highlights of that footage, go onto Nat.Geo Wild's Facebook page. And now we're with two male cheetah. They've just crossed the southern boundary of Cheetah Plains. If they keep walking in this direction, they're going to walk straight to where we left quarantine. Now here comes the second male. I have not seen cheetahs since August, so I'm just having the best day. And Dangerous Dave, I want to wait for him to come back. This is your first full day back from leave. Remember, this is 100% live. You are enjoying these cheetah at the exact same time as us. And remember, if you want to ask any questions, hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarthTV. Okay, isn't this incredible? Now, I wonder if there's any poor unsuspecting impala. Now, when we talk about cheetahs being crepuscular, most active at dusk and dawn, it started to get a little bit cooler, not much, but now is the time. And then both these boys look quite hungry. Now, it seems the luck is definitely on my side today. Most of the time I catch them as they're crossing into Mala Mala. Now they've just crossed into Cheetah Plains, so I'm ecstatic, and we have been waiting for a very long time to watch a cheetah hunt take place on over these wide open plains. Is today the day? Now, Lionheart's wondering what would happen if these two cheetah met Mr. Q, the leopard we've just been with. Now, strange enough, these exact two cheetah have met Mr. Q before, and he was much younger then, and he chased them. So it's likely that if he spots them, he will definitely chase them. The cheetah being so highly designed and so extremely adapted to speed, they've foregone almost all their strength, and any little injury could prove a big problem for them. So they would 99.9% of the time try avoid conflict with an animal as strong as a leopard, and particularly with Mr. Quarantine being as big as he is and as strong as he is, they would avoid him even more. We're just going to shoot up ahead a little bit. I'm going to just go around the front of them. Two reasons. One, we want to get a nice look at their beautiful faces. Number two is we want to see if there's any impala on the next clearing. So being in the right place for a hunt. Now, cheetah is probably one of the best animals to follow hunting, especially in a particularly open area like this, because you are able to position yourselves perfectly to get the whole hunt happen. Now, of course, there's got to be impala, so fingers crossed. And they're going to scent mark as they go. So cheetah have their favorite scent marking spots, and they will often use them time and time again. Look at that, smelling. Now, the reason a cheetah move such big distances and have such large home ranges is because they're constantly in search of lady cheetahs, who have even bigger home ranges than the boys. Now, cheetah are the only big cat that need a male heavy sex ratio for successful breeding. So all other cats, you will find that there are more girls than boys, except in cheetah. They're scanning towards the edge of the tree line. Oh, they changed their mind. Not heading towards where Mr. Q is anymore. They might head back. Or they might just be going to a favorite tree to mark. There could be some water left from the rain that they might go have a drink just behind where Andrew is there. So we're just going to get ourselves into a good spot. We're heading straight towards this area at the moment.